know, this guy was in here the other day talking to me. And he said, hey, there's something screwy in the world. The people without guns are winning.
I'm so sorry.
Anything.
This is a technique of combat. It is a substitute for war and other violence.
We don't know quite how it spread, but it certainly did into 30-some languages in different parts of the world, on all continents except Antarctica. Unless they have something instead of violence and war, they will go back for violence and war every time.
I came to work at the Albert Einstein Institution very shortly after graduating from college, and I had been concerned about the world. It was 2001. It was a very interesting time to be entering the workforce, and I was thinking about entering some development field, working for a charity, an NGO that's very consistent with my family background. I had ideas about the world, about violence, about conflict, coming from Afghanistan that's seen a great deal of conflict, and sort of growing up with that history as a backdrop to my childhood, really, and having been a refugee at a very young age, I had ideas about how conflict should be waged and the need for conflict, really. You know, I had perceptions of the anti-war community and the peace community as being really naive, that people are not going to give up violence, and that they should not, that some conflicts must be waged. But at the time I did not know there were very powerful alternatives to violence. So I began learning about the work at a very basic level. I did most of my reading and learning as soon as I started working at the institution, and I was hooked.
I was maybe 25 or something like that. I took a civil disobedience position against military conscriptions. And so I went to prison. I had a 2-year sentence. I did 9 months and 10 days. In those days, you counted the days as well as more. But I don't think that my action there did any good whatsoever. But it was just to keep my sense of my own integrity, so I would carry on in work that I thought was really important. I never met Einstein, but I wrote to him. I don't know how I got his address. I said, well, I'm about to do such and such and go to prison. But by the way, I've written this book on Gandhi. There's 3 cases of Gandhi, 3 quite different cases from each other, of Gandhi's using nonviolent struggle for a greater freedom through not just nonviolent means. And he wrote back that he was very much hoped that he couldn't know, but he had hoped he would have made the same decision I did, and he would be willing to look at the manuscript, which I had sent to him, and he did so, and wrote a very kind introduction to the book. If you can identify the sources of a government's power, such as legitimacy, such as popular support, such as that institutional support. And then you know on what that dictatorship depends for its existence. And since all those sources of power are dependent upon the goodwill, cooperation, obedience, and help of people and institutions, then your job becomes fairly simple. All you have to do is shrink that support and that legitimacy, that cooperation, that obedience, and the regime will be weakened. And if you can take those sources of power away, the regime will fall. And that was a sort of eureka moment, that this was not just a theory, and this was something that actually had been applied in many different historical cases.
I say nonviolent struggle is armed struggle. And we have to take back that term from those advocates of violence who try to justify with pretty words that kind of combat. Only with this type of struggle, one fights with psychological weapons, social weapons, economic weapons, and political weapons. And that this is ultimately more powerful against oppression, injustice, and tyranny than is violence. When people are slaughtered, when they are beaten, this produces a process of what I call political jiu-jitsu, in which the opponent's supposed strength is used to undermine the opponent by alienating more people from supporting that regime, mobilizing more people into the active resistance.
Gene Sharp is someone who is, of course, my personal mentor, but I think has served as that role for multitudes of people. He's someone who has dedicated his life to providing the means by which oppressed people can self-reliantly gain liberation. And that is something which I believe has changed the world and will continue to do so in dramatic ways. And I look forward to witnessing that and hopefully contributing to that. It's really personal stuff.
Sometimes people ask me what I really want. Do I have a dream? And I do. I dream that the oppressed people of the world will be able to learn from the available records and new experiences that this type of nonviolent struggle can be used to liberate all oppression and replace military and violent conflicts, so that you won't have to carry on struggles against terrorism anymore, because the people who might have become terrorists have instead chosen to use this kind of struggle to help out the oppressed people. This can change political systems throughout the world. My name is Gene Sharp, and that is my dream.